Hello and welcome everyone. You're welcome once again to another session of our Fronius webinar. These webinar sessions are organized to keep our installers and partners alike abreast with the products and the solutions we use these products to prefer. And then, of course, I give you information on anything new about our products and solutions. So today we shall be discussing the Fronius service concept for inverters. Today it's just me. Fortunately, my scheduled co-presenter for today, Byron Kotzer, TSA Southern Africa region, is unavoidably absent today. So I will be taking us through this session today. So my name is Cyprian Okolo. I'm the Technical Sales Advisor for the Western Africa region based in Lagos, Nigeria. Let's now quickly have a look at the agenda, what we have today. So we shall just be going through quick, proper inverter installations for the snap inverters, Gen 24, Gen 24 Plus, the Tauro. We shall go through error codes and how we can get by them, inverter software update, and then how we can carry them out remotely via SolarWeb. Look at troubleshooting, especially using the SOS, and then how we can perform components exchange, and then talk briefly about the Fronius system partnership. Then afterwards, we shall round up by giving you just a brief further information. Good. So without further ado, we shall start. But before then, please feel free to ask your questions during the webinar by using the chat function, as you would find on the tab on the right-hand side. That's if you're using a PC. And then, of course, on the control tab, if you're using any smart device to attend this webinar. We value opinion very much, so please give us a feedback about the content of our webinars. In terms of in-webinar response, since I'm the one doing this alone, I might not be able to answer your questions immediately or during the presentation. So, but feel free to send in your questions. Of course, I will endeavor to get back to you. If not during the webinar session, then probably later on via email. So let's get started. Just to give us a sneak peek about what we mean by the Fronius service concept, we just want to make a reference to the Fronius Sunrise, which was our very first inverter that was manufactured in 1995. Now, since the inception of the Solar Energy Business Unit of Fronius, of course, in 1992, we have developed a steady system that ensures that our partners, especially our customers, ensure that we have or enjoy the best service possible. Like Mr. Rudolph Meter, who has the Fronius Sunrise installed in the site since 1996. So we're talking about 28 years of active service without any failure. So that's quite impressive, you would say. So we kind of prefer to you a partnership and an active service concept that's obviously running without an expiry date, you would say. So that's what we mean by Fronius service concept. And to find out more information about the Fronius Sunrise and Mr. Rudolph Meter's installation, please feel free to scan this QR code. It will, of course, give you access to this information. Good. Now let's talk about the proper installation. This time for snap inverters. We shall be doing same for the Gen 24s and then for the towers. Going with the snap inverter, of course, we all must be familiar with it. For those who are not, it basically comes in as a two-part piece. So one part is the wall mount bracket, as you can see, being installed in the illustration. And then once you have it installed, all you need to do is to have access to the installation terminals, install your cables. Once they're done, you can fit in the other part of the inverter and snap it in, basically where it got the name snap inverter. And then once you're done, all you need to do next is to fit in the DACCOM cover and screw it in. Once that is done, you can now switch on your DC disconnector switch, and you're done with the installation. Of course, it is pertinent to note here that it's not basically restricted to wall mount installation. You can actually have a pole mount installation, as you can see illustrated. All you need to do is to ensure that you have the proper installation accessories. Yeah, installation is actually fast and easy, and so is servicing. And when it comes to device replacement, this is actually possible within minutes. And certainly you're going to see how this is done in the subsequent slides. So in terms of installation, all our inverters come with a descriptive manual on where and where not to install our inverters, and as also shown in these illustrations. Same thing with the orientation of the inverter. Please, it is recommended not to make out modern art in terms of positioning the inverters. So just have it as simple as possible, either vertically upright or horizontally or upward diagonal. You are good. So, because there are times when installations are not done properly, because there are some things that could go wrong. So you should ask, what could go wrong? Well, we could have mishaps like this, and like this. So please ensure that you follow the instruction manuals, installation manuals, to ensure that you don't wind up getting any of these faulty installation going wrong. Good. So like I mentioned about the manuals, it is possible to access the manuals via installer and partners tab. Of course, you have to make sure that you click on this Solar Energy homepage tab, because we have 3 business units. That's the welding, the charging, and of course the solar energy. So click on the solar energy, it brings you to our homepage, and then click on installers or partners. There you can have access to manuals that you can freely download. So talking about the manuals, we have 3 types. So first up is the installation manual, which consists of symbols, mainly symbols. They come without much text. So these are usually delivered with inverter. We can also have the full version with full text description, which is always available for download. Also available for download operational manuals that comes in the text version. So please use this link. The link is active, as you can see, and then of course you can have access to these downloadable manuals. In terms of the installation clearance, for the snap inverters, the small inverters, because we have 2 sizes, so we have the primo and the small simo, the clearance should be at least 10 centimeters or 100 millimeters between each inverter. That is if you're installing multiple inverters. And then the clearance to the top should be 15 centimeters or 150 millimeters. So for the big simos, the clearance still is 10 centimeters, and then the clearance from above is 20 centimeters. Great. This is, of course, to allow for effective active cooling. Good. Let's now talk briefly about the Gen 24 and Gen 24 Plus. So if you'd notice, we rolled out our Gen 24 PV inverters a couple of months ago. So that is why we have them properly demarcated, so that the definition would not be mixed up. So we have the Gen 24 and then the Gen 24 Plus, which is our battery connectable hybrid inverter. Good. So going forward, perhaps of course similar features. The only difference, or the main difference, is that the Gen 24 Plus inverter is battery connectable, and that's basically it. So for all the other installation guidelines are pretty much the same in terms of conditions, installation conditions. They can be installed at ambient temperatures of or between minus 40 degrees Celsius for the primal and minus 25 degrees Celsius for the simul, up to 60 degrees Celsius. So that's quite a very good range. 100% humidity is permitted. And then in terms of installation at altitudes, the primal can actually go as high as 4,000 meters above sea level, while the simul can go as high as 3,000 meters above sea level. Going beyond these stipulated altitudes would depict that would have to, it would definitely affect the VDC. So it means that the higher you go above this, it means that you'd have to be a bit restrictive in terms of your maximum voltage, DC voltage. Good. So just shedding more light on what I've just mentioned earlier. As you can see, our inverters are IP66, meaning that it has ingress protection against raindrops or jet water and sunlight, but then it is advised to have it installed under shade, possibly under the PV shade. So that's good enough. So please ensure that you check the difference in terms of the altitude. If you're going with a primal, ensure that you don't go beyond the stipulated altitude height. Same applies for the simuls. All other conditions, as mentioned previously, also apply as illustrated. Good. So how about the orientation? Still the same thing as mentioned for the snap inverters. Clearance level is 170 millimeters or 17 centimeters for the Gen 24 simuls. Same applies for the primals. And then in terms of upward clearance, the same thing also applies, as you can see. Good. Yeah, let's talk about the tower installation now. So if you've noticed, we're just basically taking you through brief installation procedures, because our main topic today is the service process. But then we thought it would be proper if we go through the, briefly through the installation procedures, and then we can now jump into the crux of the matter today. So for the tower installation, just basically through the layout for you to see basically why it's important to install it properly. So for the tower inverter, it's basically divided into parts. Here we can see that there are basically 4 parts. So first part is the power stack, which I fondly call the conversion chamber. So we also have the DC connection area. We have the AC and DC filter, plus the DIN rails. Of course, this section also contains the surge protection devices. And then we now have the output area, which is the AC, so which is where we have the output of what comes in through the DC. Good. The tower, of course, as we know, is extremely robust and is suitable for installation in unprotected outdoor areas. And one beautiful feature about it is that you can actually daisy chain the Fronius tower, meaning that you can interconnect the AC terminals in series with another one. And then another feature about it is that it can be installed horizontally, that is facing upwards. So let's see more about this. Yeah, so like I was mentioning, you can actually install it outdoors, but then like mentioned before, it's better to have it under shade. And yeah, so like I was mentioning in the previous slide, it's possible to install the tower horizontally. So as you can see, this is course, aided with this extra accessory, which is a floor mount bracket. So the floor mount bracket is used to install the inverter horizontally. And you can be assured that once it is installed, it's possible, or of course, you wouldn't have any ingress of dust particles or, say, rain or water particles slipping in. Good. Yeah, it's nice to see your questions popping in. So please continue to send them. Like I've mentioned earlier, it might not be possible for me to answer the questions during the presentations, but I'll endeavor to get back to you subsequently. So for the clearance between inverters, it is recommended to have at least 50 centimeters this gap between the inverters. That is, if you're installing multiple inverters. And the clearance to the top, also the same thing, 50 centimeters. Sideways also 50 centimeters. Good. So this is how the wall mount bracket looks like for the towel. So please ensure that you follow the installation or the mounting directive. So once that is done, ensure that you have the brackets, the bottom brackets, properly screwed, as you can see, to ensure that the inverter is properly installed. Yes. So I just checked up a question, and there's an inquiry to know if this presentation will be made available. Yes, indeed. This presentation will be sent out to all of you after subsequently, basically. And then, yeah, so be assured that you're going to get a PDF presentation slide after this presentation. Great. So continuing, yeah, so in terms of horizontal positioning, of course, you'd have to ensure that the floor mount racks are properly installed in all the ascribed or inscribed positions as directed, of course, as shown in the manual. So now let's begin to get into the service concept. So in Fronius, we basically look at longevity. So once we have a system put out there, we would want to ensure that that system lasts a lifetime. So paramount to this, we ensure that our service concept fits into this mission or vision, let's say. So in order to achieve this, we have what we call state or error codes. So this state or error codes, there are for installers and clients alike this is basically the communication medium or language that the inverters use to communicate if there's any thing to be worried about, or if there's anything to be done about the service or the state of the inverter. So what are these error codes? So we actually have them in classes, and then the troubleshooting processes that are carried out with regards to these respective classes. So for class 1, these are usually transient error and very likely to be caused by the grid. Class 3 errors are temporal errors that are also that are easily corrected by automatic rectification or simply by the restarting of the inverter sometimes. And then we have class 4 errors which would need the intervention of a Fronius trained technician. Class 5 errors actually comes in as a result of an interruption of feed-in operation. And this is usually arrested by the quit buttons. And then class 7 errors are error related to control unit and then configuration and data recording. For class 10 to 12 errors, this usually only appears in the set of parameters of the system. Good. So now, having gone through these respective classes, let's have a typical state code and how these state codes or error codes can be resolved. So before we do so, let's have a list of these codes. So we have what we call the service menu. So the service menu basically, how would I call it, bypass menu or shortcut to enable you to get to a particular section of the inverter or particular status of the inverter without necessarily going through the long process of, you know, the step-by-step process of getting through to that particular status or, yeah, or menu that you would want to get through to. So these really come in handy when you have an error code. So like you can see in this case, we have an access or menu service menu code of 73887. So if we have a quick look at what we have on the list here, 73887 basically starts for the setup menu. So this is basically used to adjust in case there was a mistake in setting up during the setup process. You accidentally entered a different country from the country of installation. You can quickly enter this menu, service menu code, and then impute this code to get by, and then you can adjust the country setup. Other codes include the error counter code, service menu code. And if I'm correct, I might have some of you looking at the codes and trying to see if you can memorize it. But then that's absolutely not needed at all, because these codes can be decoded per se. Great. So how's this done? I'm quickly going to show you how this is done. So at first, all you need is your phone keypad. Okay, this is basically how a phone keypad looks like. Yeah. And then ensure that you have this version. This is a commonly known version. I've seen some versions that have the alphabets situated in a non-conventional way. So for me, I believe this is a conventional way how they're situated in most phone keypads. So once you have your phone keypad, all you need to do is to know the keywords in these error codes or this error code descriptions. Okay. Now, by keyword, I mean start in this case for the start code, error in this case, that is for the error counter, setup in the country setup menu, and then basic in the service menu, basic code. So these are the keywords. Okay. Now, how do you make use of this to decode the error code or the state code? Let's take start, for example. So start is spelled S-T-A-R-T. Okay. Now, here's where the keypad comes into play. So look at the spelling and then find out which numbers represent each letter in the spelling. So for start, for example, so S is represented by 7. That is why you're seeing 7 here as the first number. Next up is T, which is represented by 8 in the keypad. That is why you're seeing 8 here. Then it's followed by A. A is represented by the number 2. R, represented by number 7, as you can see. And then finally T, which is represented by the number 8. So there you have it. 7, 8, 2, 7, 8. Right? So next up is error, for example. So I think the same process goes through in this case. So E is represented by 3, as you can see. Double R is represented by double 7. And then O by 6. And then another R represented by 7. So that's 3, 7, 7, 6, 7. So you can take your time to check up the other keywords. So like I said, all you need to know is the keywords for the respective codes. Start, error, setup, basic. So you can try your hands on the other two and then see if you come up with the correct error codes. So for the service menu, just going to give you a brief description of what you can actually access with these respective codes. So for the service menu, the keyword is start. You can use it to access the language menu, country setup, time and date. For the key, yeah, so this is basically the only difference in the description I have explained in the previous slide. So this is basically simple and straightforward. But probably that's why we didn't include that in our plans for the error code decoding. So this is basically 1231, 12321. Sorry. So with that, you're able to access the key lock. So with this code, you will be able to disable the keys, the tab keys here. So you can use it to either disable or enable it. For the error code, you can use it to access the memory of all the state codes for the present day and previous days. For the setup, you can use it to access the section of the country setup node and grid parameters according to the specific norm for that particular region. In terms of the basic, here you have lots of functions attached to it. So with this service menu, you can access the MPP tracker, and there you can make these respective settings. Same service menu, that's for the basic. You can also use it to carry out any of these settings. There are quite a lot, so I wouldn't want to go through them. So you can just have a read up of them. So we have a special service menu, which is called the Pro code or the Pro menu. So this is a one-off code request that is usually sent, that must be sent to Fronius tech support. And then once the consent form is signed, because we're going to send you a consent form, once you sign the consent form, you can now have access to this particular menu. This is done so as to restrict access to this particular menu because it consists of very sensitive parameters for the system. So we ensure that we have it protected as much as possible. So only trained personnel are allowed to access these particular parameters. Good. Let's talk a bit about the Gen 24, Gen 24 Plus and Tauro status LED. So these are all connected because they have the same communication medium, which is the pilot. So the pilot is basically an LED integrated communication module. And with this module, or in this module, we have two LEDs at either side of the control button for the web access. Okay, so depending on the colors of these LEDs, you can tell the state of the inverter. So these are all the color codes, and then these are the respective description. So if one would ask, okay, which LED statuses shows a normal operation for the Fronius Gen 24 Plus series, or the Tauro, or the Gen 24? So it's basically green and blue. So if you look at green and blue here, it shows that the inverter is running and it is, of course, connected. So, yeah, for the Gen 24 state codes, this comes in as there's a bit of a difference between them and that of the snap inverters, because you'll notice that for the Gen 24, the Gen 24 Plus, and the Tauros, they don't have displays. So of course, there has to be a way to read off, these error codes for inverters that don't have displays. So basically, the displays, you can either make use of the LEDs as shown in the previous slide, but then you can also get these error codes on your monitoring device or devices. So it comes in as a 4-digit code with short description of these codes and status. Good. Let's now talk about how inverter software updates can be carried out. For the snap inverters, it is possible to have these updates via USB stick. As you can see, all you need to do is to follow the steps. So once you download the update, the firmware update, excuse me, in your memory stick, you have to follow this process. Once you do so, you will be able to carry this out. Of course, there's a way you can actually do it remotely. So all you need to do is to log in to SolarWeb, which is cloud-based or database that you can use to access any inverter from anywhere in the world. But then, of course, you'd have to ensure that the systems are internet connected. So once this is done, you can actually have access to it. And once you're there, of course, via SolarWeb, you need to go to click on the Components tab, click on Settings first, click on the Components tab. It will now take you to the respective components, and then you would now have the opportunity to update these components. So in this case, you have data sources, which is your data manager in this case. And then if there's any update, you're going to see that this hyperlink is indicated that there is an update. It will show you the version that is installed and then the version that is available for upgrade or update. Great. Let's have a brief look at this SolarWeb remote update. So with it, please ensure that whatever device you're using, ensure that it has a communication module in it. Without a communication module, of course, there's no way that the inverter can communicate. So for the snap inverters, ensure that you have a data manager in it if it's a single inverter. For multiple inverters, ensure that the master has the data manager. If you have multiple data managers, ensure that you have just one data manager that is turned in the on position. Okay. Now for the Gen 24s, the Gen 24 Plus, and the Tauros, they are all ex-factory installed or integrated with the Gen 24 with the pilot card. Beg your pardon. So with this card, of course, you can communicate seamlessly with the inverters in the system. It is, of course, important to have the Fronius smart meter for every installation, because through it, you'll be able to get full reading of full information about the inverters or the system production and consumption details. And then, of course, also have the capability of performing some extra functions like feeding limitation. Good. And then, of course, via an internet device or module, you can, of course, access these systems via your monitoring device. So it could be a tablet, it could be a PC, or a smartphone. So how do you now connect or register this system into SolarWeb? So there are, of course, two possibilities. You have the mobile version and the desktop version. So either ways, this would ensure that you're able to access the system. Good. So let's talk about the monitoring. So like I've mentioned, it is important for every system, Fronius installed system, to have a smart meter, because through the smart meter, you will be able to have access to this monitoring platform. Of course, it is also possible to first off have this system monitored by your smart device, that is your phone, and it is also possible to have your commissioning app, which is the Fronius Solar Start app. So with it, you can not only install or commission your product, you can also, through these Solar Start app, have access to the system and, of course, register this inverter or these inverters, if they're multiple, through or to the SolarWeb. So just to recap, looking at the possibilities. So it is possible to integrate access permissions in SolarWeb. You can either have access to it as owner, supervisor, or the guest. So as a guest, you can only have access to it in the read-only version, meaning that you can only read out information but you cannot perform any change. So as a supervisor and owner, there is the possibility of making some changes in the system. Changes would include being able to perform system or inverter firmware updates. Good. So for firmware updates, I've already mentioned them about it already. Push messaging is of course possible once enabled, and then you can of course get real-time data, get the system production or consumption history, and then of course a full count energy balance. So updates are usually uploaded to these platforms. So it is now the onus of the installer to check for updates. And then once these updates are indicated, it is advised to carry out these updates so that whatever corrections or improvements that have been done via these updates, this would of course be effected in the respective devices. So, like I mentioned, you can actually have a listing of the messaging that you can get via push messaging activation. So once you have this, you can of course read out the narration of this message statuses and then take the necessary action, which now takes us to Solar SOS. So Solar SOS is basically a troubleshooting app from Fronius. It comes in as a self-service tool that comes in also very handy for technicians, installers, and customers alike. It's available 24/7 without waiting periods. And with it, you can carry out self-servicing and troubleshooting procedures or processes. So how does the app look like? So this is basically the mobile version, but then you also have the desktop version that looks like this. So yeah, let's discuss about the key features of this app. So with the app, it is 100% digital. Previously, there was a need for any applicant for the app, of course, to fill in a document and then scan and send it back. But this time around, everything is done digitally. So no written declaration of consent anymore. It is IAM enabled. So this means that if you have a login credential in any of our other apps, like the SolarWeb, for example, you don't have to enter a different login credential for this. So the same login credentials you have in the other apps, Fronius apps, can of course be called up and be used for any other Fronius app, as is in this case of the Solar SOS. So there you can of course have access to step-by-step instruction processes for servicing success. Good. What's next in terms of key features? We have in-app communication. So in this app, you can actually communicate with our tech support to find out the status of all your inquiries. It is also possible to have also have manuals and videos. So with these manuals and videos, you can have access to YouTube links of whatever topic that you have chosen to find out anything about. Yeah, so let's look at exchange of components. Now, once there is a service case that would require for an exchange of either the entire inverter or a component of the inverter, the installer basically goes to the client, gets this information, gets this component or the inverter, gets across to the, of course, this is done via the Fronius SOS tool to depict exactly what the problem is. This would now be communicated to our Fronius tech support team. An inverter or component exchange would be recommended. And then once this is done, the installer can now effect this replacement. And in the end, you have a happy customer. So that's basically a summary of how it goes. And then in case you're wondering, it is possible to have access to our FSP partner via our FSP partner search. So this, for example, if you want to search for FSP partner in Nairobi, Kenya, for example, which happens to be the base of my Eastern African colleague, that is David Wangi. So you can, of course, have access to the details of our Fronius partner in Nairobi. Exchange of components. Let's have a look at the Snap Inverter series. So for the Snap Inverter series, this basically entails the replacement of, say, data manager, for example, or other components. So, but basically, what needs to be done is that there are some components, of course, if they are fine, that should be left at the customer site. So the inverter cover and the datum cover, of course, opened up. And then once this is done, you can now have access to the internal parts of the inverter. And then depending on the SOS process that you have carried out, you'll be able to depict what exactly the problem is with the inverter, and then profile the solution in terms of identifying which components would need to be exchanged. Now, let's just have a quick look at, say, the component exchange process, or even it could actually go as far as the replacement of the inverter. But I'm glad to say that the whole exchange, inverter whole exchange, are actually at the very, very minimum, meaning that you hardly have any case or cases where the whole inverter would need to be exchanged. So basically, this is what you have to do. Like I mentioned in the previous slide, take out the inverter cover, have access to the internal components of the inverter, pick out the components or the board that needs to be exchanged, and that is it. So once you're done with the exchange, you will now have the possibility of having a successful exchange process. So what remains at the customer site? So of course, with a working data manager, you'd have to leave it back at the site, the terminal plugs, the wall mount bracket, and the cover of the inverter. So once a successful exchange has been done, you can now put back all the components together. But then what returns to Fronius is basically all the faulty parts. So, but ensure that you leave the cover of the original inverter or the faulty inverter at the customer site. Great. So what happens during a reservo exchange? Now, for those who don't know, the reservo is like the brain of the system. So the reservo contains connection terminals for the data manager, as you can see being shown by my highlighter. It also houses the connection point for your sensor card, also houses the display unit, and then most importantly, houses the memory chip of the inverter. So this means that the entire information about the inverter is actually stored in this chip as being hovered over. Okay, so this means that in a case where we have the reservo unit to be exchanged, what needs to be done is that this memory chip has to be broken off. Okay, so because I mentioned, and which is the case of course, the entire information about the inverter or the reservo to be replaced or the inverter is contained in this chip. So you need to break it off and put it in the replacement. So once you do so, it means that the entire information about the previous inverter has been transferred to the new one. So you don't have to make any changes in terms of, say, the menu information, the country menu, and the likes. Yeah, so everything have previously already been stored in this chip. So to put it in context, or to make it clearer, this is exactly what I mean. So from the reservoir, the old reservoir, that is, you can, of course, break this memory chip off and then stick it on the new reservoir. And then, yeah, that's basically it. So other common exchange components include the filter board, the AC board, and the DC board. So this could all be exchanged. So if you notice, you'd see that all our inverters or products are modularized in nature. It means that it can be, broken into several parts or pieces, as you can see in this exploded view. So it means that whatever happens, it is rarely the case where you'd have to replace the whole inverter. So all you need to do is through SOS, you can detect what the problem is with the inverter. Of course, pull down the inverter, find out the particular component or faulty component, request for an exchange, get the exchange from our service partner, and then carry out the replacement. It's as easy as that. So let's have a look at the exchange process for the Gen 24. So for the Gen 24, which is a more compact inverter, it mainly consists of three main parts, I would say. So you have the whole inverter, we have the power unit, and then we have the data communication unit, or better still called the pilot. So we have a possibility of having spare parts like the fan, the cover, and the lights. So this is basically how we perform one exchange of the power unit, like I mentioned, which happens to be the replacement device per se. So all you need to do is to remove the cover, have access to the DATCOM cover, take it off, remove the Vago clamps. Once the Vago clamps are removed, you can also remove the DATCOM protector, take out the pilot, and at the end, you will be left with something like this. So what stays at the customer site, of course, the wall-mount bracket, the Vago clamps, the inverter casing, both back and front cover, the DATCOM cover, pilot protector, and the connection or termination screws. Good. So now we have the power unit, of which the faulty parts can be requested to be replaced, and of course, subsequently replaced successfully. Good. So this is just like we had in the snap inverter, we have an exploded view of the Gen 24 inverter. So yeah, we have successfully gone through the service process of our inverters. So we hold this service process paramount in inverter design to ensure that once, like I mentioned earlier, once we have our products out there, we ensure that the client is happy with what he or she has. Good. So what are the next steps? So this is the point where I would want to invite us to, of course, join our Fronius system partner programs, where we ensure that as an installer, you're able to have the best support that you can as an FSP. So we have a dedicated webinar on why you should become a Fronius system partner. Please endeavor to check it out on dedicated YouTube playlist and get all the information you need about this partnership program. So for further information, you can, of course, gain access to recordings, which are available on our homepage. And on this homepage, you can find operating and installation instructions via this link. On our YouTube channel, you can actually find how-to and installation videos. Specifically speaking, you can have access to our webinar recordings. This particular webinar will also be included in this list in our Sub-Saharan Africa playlist, which can be accessed with this particular link. Okay, so this means that you can, of course, find the FSP link, as I mentioned in the previous slide, through this particular link too. Good. For more inquiries related to technical questions, trainings, sales and after-sales services, please do well to contact us via this contact details as shown. But then if you want to get across to us, the technical sales advisors, please do so, but with respect to the technical sales advisor responsible for your region. Myself, Cyprian Okolo, I am responsible for the Western Africa region. Byron Kotza is responsible for the Southern Africa region, and David Mwangi is responsible for the Eastern Africa region. So do well to contact us, and then we will be happy to attend to your request. Yeah, so with that, we have come to the end of today's webinar. Sure do hope that you enjoyed the content of the webinar. And until we come your way next time, this is me wishing you all a very good rest of the day. Thank you very much for making out time to attend this webinar. And like I said, until we come your way next time, thank you and goodbye.